We have a Sojourn problem in Overwatch 2. Sojourn has quickly revealed herself to be one of the most powerful characters we've ever seen in Overwatch, but she's somehow managing to completely skip over any sort of nerfs. So we need to talk about what this precedent sets, what this means about many of the other characters that either need nerfs or are getting nerfs, and characters that no longer have a place anymore in Overwatch. Now, less than 7% of you are subscribed, so if you like the content, do me a solid and press that subscribe button, and let's get into it. Now, we already know what the next patch is going to be. Genji, Diva, Sombra, Zarya, and Kiriko all are getting nerfed. Now, while many of these characters were deemed pretty powerful, specifically Sojourn is not only the most powerful character we've seen in quite some time, she makes up the vast majority of the top 500 DPS slots as the primary pick. Sojourn is also seeing incredible amounts of play in pro play, so it seems very strange that she is excluded from this list when she is far and away more picked than even characters like Genji in the higher ranks and incredibly powerful at her peak. Now, this is actually our first clue in telling us exactly how Blizzard is going to balance for the foreseeable future. When we look at Genji and we look at Sojourn, why is Genji getting nerfed and Sojourn is getting a pass scot-free? If we look at their high-ranked pick rates, while Genji is played a substantial amount, Sojourn still greatly overshines him and is picked far more. So if Sojourn is actually the better pick in high rank, what about middle and low ranks? And that's when you really see the difference. Genji is still picked a substantial amount in every single rank, the low ranks, the middle ranks, while Sojourn is a character that greatly falls off in her effectiveness when we talk about the middle and lower ranks. Now, if we go and move on to a character like Zarya, who's oppressive at not only the lower and middle ranks, but also the higher ranks, it makes absolute sense to nerf a character like that because across the board, the win rate and pick rate is just too high. But things change quite severely in the Genji and Sojourn example because unlike Sojourn, Genji is getting nerfed, but Sojourn remains scot-free. And this shows that Blizzard is prioritizing the average rank over the higher ranks in the game. This is mainly because Genji is a character that can easily punish mistakes, and mistakes are made even more frequently as you go down the ranks. So even though Genji is a very hard character to master, there are so many more mistakes to take advantage of in the middle and lower ranks that a Genji at any rank can still find success, while Sojourn's a character that unless you develop the individual skill to be able to consistently get value out of a railgun, she's not a character that is all that powerful. Now, I know that many of you are going to be completely okay with characters being balanced for the average rank because you are not someone who cares about what is viable or not viable in pro play or the highest rank. But I will say that there are problems that you cannot foresee if the game continues to balance this way. When the Genji nerfs were revealed, the vast majority of high-rank players and quite a bit from middle ranks as well were against the Genji nerfs. Now, you might be wondering, why would a support player or a tank player who often goes against Genjis actually want Genji to stay in his current state? Here's the thing that you need to understand, and it goes back directly to what I talked about before. The mistakes are less apparent the higher in rank you go, and the less and less Genji gets value. This means that as you become a better player, the character gets less value and there's less gaps, and a Genji has to go above and beyond in order to find those gaps and get that value, which is a lot better than having a character like Sojourn who can get value even if you're making no mistake. Being able to fly around the corner and instantly one-tap you, a character like that is far more frustrating to play with up against a good Sojourn rather than a good Genji who needs to find those expert situations to express not only their mechanical skill, but find a key moment to take advantage of you when you are playing discipline. And that's ultimately why the vast majority of players actually argued against the Genji nerfs. Not because Genji was getting nerfed, because I could definitely see an argument that Genji's power level was too high and everything in the game needs their power level to be readjusted down. And Genji could still remain viable in a situation where everything is nerfed and everything is a lot weaker because the power ceiling was getting too high and the power creep was creeping up way too much. Now, that would be the case, but you can't do that and then keep Sojourn in her current state. Instead of this balance being a balance that is expressively targeting power creep, it's targeting the frustrations of the average ranked player instead of the power level in the game if a character like Sojourn gets to exist in her current state. Now, you still might disagree with me a little bit in these arguments, and that's okay. You can definitely let me know down below which parts you agree and disagree, but I want to tell you this. It is going to be absolutely impossible to balance for everyone. I want to make this clear. Let's talk about console, the Phara Mercy problem on console that no one seems to talk about. Phara Mercy is super dominant on console. It is extremely powerful, and a lot of players in the vast majority of ranks on console have to deal with the Phara Mercy threat, and it's frustrating. Now, in the past, Overwatch has actually split the balancing between PC and console, but since they have fused them, and now the balance is the same because crossplay is enabled. Now, let me tell you this. Phara is not a character that is very strong in the meta, pretty much at any rank that much, especially on PC, but on console, she's pretty dominant. Now, imagine if they said, okay, in order to make it so Phara Mercy is no longer dominant across the board, let's nerf both Phara and Mercy. And then now they nerf them so bad that they're not good on console. What does that do to Phara Mercy in PC? And what does that do to Phara Mercy in high rank, low rank, any rank? The problem is, while you deal with the frustrations of one group of people, you're also hurting the Phara Mercy players that actually weren't being oppressive at all. And as a matter of fact, Phara is probably a character that you could justify buffs depending on what data you're pulling from and what rank data you're pulling from. This is just one example why balancing to make people not frustrated and happy on average or at the average rank will never actually contribute to a very healthy ecosystem with balance. Another character that's actually a very interesting cause for concern is Kiriko. The reality of Kiriko is that at the middle to lower ranks with Kiriko, she will never ever be broken. This is a character that really requires you to be able to aim very, very well in order to get a decent amount of value with her. Plus, you have to have a very high APM, actions per minute, so there's a ton of decision making you need to make on the fly. Now, Kiriko right now is incredibly broken at high ranks and in pro play as well, and even though she's getting nerfed slightly, she is still going to be probably one of the most powerful characters right there along with Sojourn after these big nerfs. Now, this is also a character that can completely lock down characters like Ana, preventing their effectiveness, and Kiriko can effectively hate out a ton of characters in the game from being meta or played. Now, the problem here with Kiriko is if we look at the precedent set with the Genji Sojourn example, Kiriko could be a character that would never ever receive nerfs because she is not a character that is dominant in the average or lower ranked play, but she is absolutely super dominant in the pro and high ranked play. So just like Sojourn, she could be left completely untouched, even though fundamentally she is incredibly powerful and she forces a lot of characters to not see play at the highest ranks. Now, you can even take this a step further. Imagine if they all of a sudden wanted Kiriko to be pretty decent at the middle ranks, and they said that her win rate was just too low, and they buffed her to be just viable at the middle ranks. She would become an absolute monster at the highest ranks. Not saying they would do that, but based on the precedent that they're setting, they really do want to tailor to everyone here when it's not actually possible to tailor to everyone. Now, I want to make this clear that there are some balance changes that you can do that can affect high rank and low rank and mid rank all separately and kind of be the best of all worlds, but those balance changes are going to be few and far between, and oftentimes any balance change you do can have an amplified effect as the average skill of a player increases. Now, if it was up to me, these are the two things I would do. I would balance from the top down, making things balanced at the highest ranks of play, but making sure that the best strategies are strategies that require advanced level of skill in order to make them work. Not to be overpowered, but to be viable. Now, does this mean that characters like Kiriko and characters like Sojourn might be very, very bad or maybe even unplayable at the middle or lower ranks of play? Yes, it might do that, but is that okay? I think that is a yes as well, because it makes sure that at the top levels, things are properly balanced, but they're balanced with a skill-centered mindset. And then in the vast majority of ranks where the skill is not apparent, characters that are fundamentally a little bit easier might have better success. But if you learn and develop with some of these skill-intensive characters, you can utilize that to have a high win rate and effectively climb up the ranks. Now, that doesn't mean that you never balance for the average rank. I think that anything that is overly frustrating to a large percentage of the population should get addressed. What do I mean by overly frustrating? Characters that will ruin competitive experiences to the point where people don't want to play. If there's a character like Bastion that is super, super powerful, or a character that is just giving everyone a very frustrating time with little to no counterplay without that skill being in place, then I understand that those things should be dealt with, and there are ways to deal with that without affecting the skill-centered, high-ranked, top-down approach of balance. Now, regardless of if they balance like this or they balance the way they have been doing, the number one thing that we need is transparency. Blizzard keeps a ton of the data about win rates and pick rates across ranks to themselves. And I think that all that information should be transparent so that people can not only learn from the vast majority of information, but make up their own minds about what is balanced and what is not, with actual statistics to back those claims up. Now, I really want to pass the question off to you. How do you feel overall about the balance changes that are happening? And in your opinion, what is the best route forward for both healthy and competitive balance through the life cycle of Overwatch 2? Thank you for coming by. Hope you enjoyed the video. Smash that subscribe button, and I'll see you next time.